So have you ever experienced a situation where you just cannot communicate with a person that's important to you in your life? Either they don't understand you or you don't understand them. Today we're going to talk about what are the principles of effective communication. You know, one of the most frustrating things that a person can experience is when you have something important that you're trying to communicate to somebody else and they just don't get it. They don't see it the way that you see it. Have you had that experience where you've had an idea or you learned something new and you're excited about it and you want to go share it with somebody else and they just don't see it? They don't feel the same way that you do. I remember one of the first times that this kind of really dawned on me and hit me about one of the principles I'm going to teach today is when we were starting our residential treatment program, we had to get approval from the city in order to meet code. The city had to approve a residential treatment center within the boundaries of the city. Well, I was really excited about opening our treatment center, and I saw this center as being a benefit not only to the girls and the families that would come to our program, but that it would be a benefit to the community as well. This was in 2008. The economy was struggling, and I knew that we would be able to provide jobs for people in the community. And the things that we would be teaching our students would also be things that would benefit the lives of our staff who would be working with us. And so all I could see in my mind was win, win, win for this. And so I went to the city council, presented our idea to them, and I was so frustrated and disappointed when members of the city council did not want this residential treatment center in their town. And they had all of these reasons for not wanting it. And I remember coming out of that meeting being angry and being frustrated because the other people couldn't see what I could see. And then it dawned on me, it really isn't or wasn't their responsibility to see things the way that I saw them. In their mind, they had their own beliefs, their own mindset of what they thought was the best thing for the community. And they saw what I was offering as something that would be something negative to the community. But I realized then that it was my responsibility to figure out how to communicate to them what I saw and in the way that I understood it. It wasn't their responsibility to understand me. It was my responsibility to figure out how to communicate effectively with them. So with that, there are two parts of communication. There's the sending of the information, and then there's the receiving of the information. It's pretty simple. And yet, there is so much miscommunication that goes on in our lives. I'm sure you've experienced situations where you thought that you were on the same page with somebody else. You had had a conversation, a discussion about something, came away with an agreement or a perceived understanding, only to find out later that both of you understood what you had talked about in a different way. And the outcome was not what you thought that it was going to be. One of the reasons for that is in communication, we tend to rely very heavily on the words that we use, and yet our words really only make up about 7% of all of our communication. All of the rest of the communication is made up of body language, our tone of voice, and all of those other things that come into. It's also affected by our own filters. So depending on the place that you're at and what's going on in your mind, you may be in a negative state, and therefore everything that you hear is going to be filtered through that negative filter. And so I might be in a positive state, and my filter is totally different than yours. So I may be using words that mean one thing to me, but they mean something else to you. So there's so many different things that affect the words that we use and that communication going back and forth. So one really simple technique that you can use when you're wanting to communicate an idea to somebody else is just to make sure that they understand exactly what it is that you're trying to communicate with them. So instead of just assuming that they understand what I said and just moving on, after I've made a statement or explained my point of view, the best thing that I can do is check in with them, and I can say, so share with me what it is that you heard me say, or will you tell me what you heard me say, or what is your understanding of what I just expressed to you? That then gives the person an opportunity in their own words to share back with me what I just shared with them. And that gives me an opportunity to make sure that they understood it in exactly the way that I was trying to present it. If not, then it gives me the opportunity to clarify and then ask again. And that back and forth can happen until there's a clear agreement on both sides of what was stated and what was being communicated. Now, if I'm on the receiving end of communication, the same thing occurs, right? That I think that I understood what the person was saying, and oftentimes that I misunderstood with that. And so one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people is, and this is one of the tools that helps improve relationships, is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So oftentimes in conversations, we're so busy trying to get the other person to see things the way that we see them and to understand things the way we understand, that we're not concerned about the other person's point of view. And because of that, we create roadblocks or miscommunication, because if both of us are just interested in trying to get the other to see it the way that we see it, we're never going to come to a common understanding. And so if I'm on the receiving end, my first goal is I want to make sure that I understand what it is that you're communicating with me. Too often when somebody else is talking, we don't even completely hear them out because we're thinking about what we're going to say in response instead of hearing the whole message and making sure that we understand it completely. So there will be time later to share your thoughts, your opinions, but in the moment when the other person is talking, focus on making sure that you understand the message that they're sending. And once the person has finished talking, then when I'm on the receiving end, I can actually do the same thing that I could do if I was the one sending the information. I could say to the person, so I want to just make sure I understand you correctly. So what you're saying is, and then I share back to them in my own words, my understanding of their thought, idea, or opinion. And again, then we can go back and forth until we get to a place where both of us know that we have that common understanding. So 2 principles of effective communication is, 1, make sure that the message that I'm sending is the message that the other person is receiving. And if I'm on the receiving end, I want to make sure that the message that I'm receiving is the message that's being sent. One thing with this, when you begin to do this in your conversations and in your relationships, is it may seem to slow the conversation down a little bit, and it may feel a little bit awkward at first. So just begin to practice it, and it's probably more important to do this in conversations that are important. So if you're having a serious conversation with somebody, these are two tools, whether you're on the sending end or the receiving end, of what you can do to make sure that the communication and what's happening in that discussion ends up in a way of where both sides understand what the other is saying and the message that you're trying to get across. In just casual conversations, the more you practice it, the more it will begin to just be natural. That in your discussions, your autopilot now is whenever you hear a message from somebody else, you just check in and you just say, so what I heard you say is, or I just want to make sure I understand this. And as you do this, your communication with others will improve, your overall relationships will improve, and your effectiveness in working with other people will improve. Thanks for watching today. I encourage you to try and implement what we talked about today and to make sure that either the message that you're sending or the message that you're receiving is what the other person is saying or hearing. And let me know how this works for you. If you have other things in your life that you're struggling with or that you would like help with, message us below, and also visit our website and see the things that we have to offer there.